So we're going to talk, Marcus, a little bit about a very specific type of player, me, which would represent maybe like 10% of the golf population.
Yeah, I mean, to quantify it, I couldn't quantify it, but it's the minority.
Yeah.
Most
At our
people,
golf school, nobody at our golf school.
no.
Yeah. So most people do what, and then what do I do? You would be better.
So most people, if I can borrow the club, basically most people don't shift their pressure early enough. So they swing back, and then the pressure between the feet moves at the same pace they're swinging, at the same rate.
Yeah.
So they're not able to use the ground to create the force and the stretch potential through the body, because as soon as you load to the floor and the other end of the body goes this way, you create stretch through the chain. They're not creating stretch. Everything's moving together, as I call a block, and what happens now is they're having to use essentially brute force.
And they're like really staying on the right side.
Because by impact, they're still probably, the best they were getting to was kind of 50-50 in terms of pressure. And we see just from tour data, we see the pros are getting very early over to their lead side, like 70-80%, typically with a driver, even more sometimes. And recreational golfers, should I say, just tend to move their pressure, often positioning the club or moving the body to try and control the club. And now pressure's moving too slow. So there's no real dynamic interaction with the ground. It's all too slow, so it's an upper body movement.
So, but somehow, because I've done so much stuff with other people like Scott and Dr. Kwan and people, where I've known for a while the importance of getting to the lead side, but in our lesson that you guys will see if you click the little join page, he's saying this is like a zombie leg that's like not really doing anything. All it's doing is kind of actually like a drag on my system, when it actually should be something that I can use to put force into it. So this is going to talk about, now would you say this is anybody or like a rear post kind of thing?
No, I mean, I think it's something to explore because we're using both feet. Essentially, it's like dragging your leg, walking. We need both feet to walk, we need both feet to throw, we need both feet to hit, strike. It's both feet are working together to help the body rotate and push and to shift, because when you're shifting pressure to one side, the other foot has to operate to stabilize that pressure shift and send it in the opposite direction, because as soon as you push forward or shift forward with your pressure, you're going to be pushing back. So
for me,
we need to be able to
that wants to wake this
regulate this
dead right side up and actually use it to create some power. We have some tools out here, and let's go kind of a abbreviated version of some things we could explore.
Yeah, because what we saw with you is also typical with kind of good players, good club golfers who shift pressure excessively, but are generally doing it through a pelvic shift and a tilt. The club goes under here, and then you get this kind of release, and that's what you were fighting. So you feel like you're transferring body weight, you feel like you're using pressure, but the way that you're doing it's almost like a cheat mechanism where it's really just tilted. It's not really a functional use of the lower body, which then
like when we were doing this.
Exactly, and that puts a demand on the upper body to react. And it's how we recognize that reaction. We're inviting the body into a reaction, and we've got to start to recognize how it reacts, because that becomes the swing we recognize. That becomes habit. That becomes a recognizable form. Sure. So what we found with you is too early, and this leg was really, there was no traction. There was no real engagement, no recruitment of the right hip. It was just essentially shifting to the left to your lead side and just rotating into the hip. And then it also affected you using the push. So what I want to talk about is what the right side does.
Yeah.
So essentially in walking, okay, you load in and then you push off, okay? So, exactly, so what happens is, if I was to load, this would be a loading, I'm exaggerating it, loading is like a natural collapse, and then that's a pronation, and then we push off the floor, that's a supination, and that extends us. When one foot's pronating, the other foot's supinating, then you're going to start to get a full load. Both legs, both feet pronate, and then you start to push off and both feet supinate. Or different forms of supination, but we're using propulsion mechanics. What you were doing, you were kind of banking this foot, you were shifting, moving into this place here where it was all loaded left side, and this foot, it couldn't contribute. So we wanted contribution here.
Yeah, let's break that up.
So the first thing we want to do is just do some single leg swings.
Okay.
So just put the left foot back on its tiptoe, and now just use the leg as a piston, little half swings, and use it as a little spring. That's it. So this is loading the hip through real functional loading, unloading chain. Now you might think, well, oh, this is going to hit off the back foot, might hit the ground, might fat it. We're on our rear leg at the moment, okay? We're going to put the lead foot in, and that's going to allow us, we know Brendan wants to shift left, we've got to let Brendan recognise what the right foot needs to do. So you can, that's it, pop off the toe, that's it. And again, let yourself spring up, just straight up. So for you, any movement this way,
we don't want to see.
We don't want to see that. That's a detriment. We just want to be going up and down. So what happens is this hip, watch this here, this hip opens up as opposed to closes in your normal swing. Okay. Now what we can also do is we can load this up with bands, with resistance bands, so you have to push against it. Or what we did as well, which was really effective for you, is use a spiky mat. Sure. So the body doesn't recognise words in terms of instruction, it recognises feelings, sensory input. Sensory input creates motor output. So if you change the sensory input, you should start to encourage a different motor output, different movement. Yeah. Now this also gives us not just a feeling of pressure, but a feeling of where you're feeling the pressure and also the timing of the pressure, how fast you can load and unload. So we wanted you to essentially get off that mat as quick as you could. You'd feel a load naturally because your body tends to take you there anyway, that's your tendency. But we were then going to get off the mat early, yeah, excellent. So to you, you felt like it was hitting off the back foot, really.
Yeah.
But what it's doing, it's allowing you to fire the rotations
the right hip looks
earlier.
better.
Yeah, you're opening up. So now you're opening up from the right hip. Because this external rotation is a component here of extension too.
They're sharp, so it feels like you go into it and out of it fast rather than sinking into it and staying into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the feedback is instantaneous and it's painful. Have another go, Brendan. Cool.
Marcus calls this his, there's a $20,000, $30,000 force plate pressure map. This is like a $30.
Yeah, this is your $30 pressure plate. Yeah. You can feel where the pressure is, you can feel the timing of it. Just, it's sensory feedback. It's a sensory pressure plate, essentially. Then have a swing without that now and see how it feels, because now you've got the luxury of feeling and using the ground and actually being able to load the foot. And then let's have a shot. See how we go. And again, it's a very different feeling for you, Brendan.
It felt fast, but
yeah, it was 112 clubhead speed with your first go, and that's got no shoes on. When we put shoes on, we're going to have more traction.
Gotcha. If I was on that thing, I go toss.
Yeah. Well done. So, what I meant by that, okay, I didn't mean it was cool to have no rotation. What I meant was it was cool that you're recognising that. So what happens is these exercises are creating feedback that makes sense in terms of how you go and adjust your movement. Yeah. So you're starting to regulate it and starting to find out what you can tap into, what you can explore. Wow. Sharp. Fantastic. And again. Now let's put the shoes on, actually. Okay, sure. That was brilliant, Brendan. What does it feel like to you? What's the difference?
It actually doesn't feel like a fast mechanic. It feels the same thing as if there was a heavy wall or a fat person that was trying to push this way slow.
Okay.
I would feel it in this leg that way. So
okay.
That way.
Push me.
Yeah, you're not fat, but that's the idea.
Exactly, yeah. So you're having to apply force this way or even down, then if you're applying force this way, you would be using that back foot too. Okay, or that way. If this leg was off the floor, if this wasn't active and you were trying to push, you'd be severely compromised.
What do you mean?
So you'd have very limited ability to push.
Yeah.
So if this isn't really active,
only that arm.
This is why people lose balance. Because they're trying to create huge forces that the body can't actually stabilize with. So that's when you see people take steps and they're really unbalanced afterwards. They're creating too much force that their movement can handle, that the body can handle actually, in terms of the lower body. So it's essentially the foundations to the house that you're building. But these foundations aren't rigid, they're actually very, very fluid. We don't often feel our feet in a golf swing, but if you go for a walk down the beach, down by the sea, afterwards you'll feel your feet have worked because they've had to push you out of the sand. So you'll feel those propulsion mechanics, and this is what we want to experience in a golf swing. We want to actually recognise them so we can actually tap into them.
Go for it, Marcus?
Yeah, please.
I was a little thin, but a dead straight shot. I think the club head speed will be good. I was just up and out of it pretty quickly.
Just 1 second. All right. Okay. We'll go again. Yeah. We'll see if we can catch it.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to, like I was tossing this way, and then push.
Sharp.
Yeah, that's going to be long.
Launch monitor disconnected.
Yeah.
You did get a 114.8.
Oh, is that before we got the ball? Oh, yeah.
Oh, just use that one.
So last swing was 114.8. When I was starting, 109-ish.
Yeah.
So,
So we're seeing a jump in speed.
It's kind of this slow mechanic of pushing hard this way. But if I want to push hard that way, then I have to, there's a couple things, if you like this, where I have to, like if I'm tossing my hands back that way, and then I go down and up quick, but when I go up, I'm pushing from this leg, like I'm pushing something very heavy that way.
Yeah. And it's
that's personal to me, but
that is fantastic. And exactly, Brendan, it's fantastic. So you're now starting to recognise feelings that you can anchor to this movement, which essentially become cues. These are really powerful attachments because what you're doing here is you're creating context to it, which is important for you to go and explore and recognise.
Other than some that have been thin, as long as it's somewhere on the face, they've all been straight.
Yeah.
When I've tried this stuff before, the face is out of control. I'm gonna hit one more shot.
Yeah.
I just want you to tell me, like, why is what I'm doing now working with the face, whereas before when I've done it, the face, like I've seen the impacts, they're not quite as good and I lose the face. So I'm just gonna try one more.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go toss it up, get down and out of it quickly.
Sharp. Well, what's really important is what you've been demonstrating is you're just demonstrating movements that you're familiarising yourself with, that you're recognising. So we'll all interpret this different and feel it different. This is, like you said, this is personal to you. This is how you're feeling it. But what you're doing is you're creating essentially a movement map. You're starting to explore movement. You're starting to recognise features of it, and you're going to start to prioritise what is the most kind of effective for you. So it's almost like a deterministic model in your mind that suddenly this is priority, this, and it's kind of, not that there's lots of things to think about, it's just emotion that you're just recognising features of, and it's like just one thing, like you just said, it feels like pushing. You can't get simpler than that.
The face control.
You're keeping the face control because with the exercise we did with the throw-in, the body, just like throwing a ball, it organises, it targets itself because we're allowing ourselves to utilise these components freely. So you're allowing yourself to rotate the arm. You're allowing yourself, because it's not rotating the arm and flip rolling. It's actually rotated while it's lagging behind you. So it's actually probably continuing to lag even more as you're rotating.
Yeah.
The only way you'd recognise this is not by slowing it down and practicing it and trying to mimic it, is by just videoing your swing and just recognising what you did. So using the video for affirmation, not trying to match a position or a movement, but just using it for affirmation of what you did, which is relative to the feeling of the movements you were demonstrating. And now you can start to play around with these tolerances, and you think, I could do it a bit more, I could do it a bit less, I could do it a bit earlier, a bit later.
Well, speaking of a bit more, this will be my last swing. I am going to, just for fun, strictly for the number, really swing hard.
Come on then.
So the hot cold kind of thing, I'm going to toss it up, and you get into it and get out of it pretty quick.
Let's bomb it over the range. Oh, Brendan.
Wow. The harder I swing, the straighter it goes.
We'll do that again.
We didn't get to use the GRF system. Marcus is leaving one with me. We're going to do some really interesting things with the GRF, because he said, would you like to do some stuff with it? I said, I only want to do it if I can stretch out, like really see, like over the course of 40 days or something. Like I want to see like a dramatic before and after. Mark said definitely it'll happen. So we're gonna do some zoom lenses with that. That's gonna be really good. We have filmed so much stuff during this trip. They're late for the airport right now. Even the second they got here to the second they left. So we've filmed
been
hours
non-stop.
and hours of stuff, nonstop with the campers and me. You can see it all at BeBetterGolf.net right here. Click the join button. First thing you got to do, if you're not subscribed to both of our channels, then there's a little sad puppy crying somewhere. So you will make him very happy if you subscribe to both channels. It will really help us out and give us good motivation to do this all again. See you later. Bye.